Welcome back to Learn SKN, and today we have a POB video for you. Today we're going to be looking at consumer protection. So we're looking at basically objective 9 in the syllabus. But before we do that, we are going to ask you to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell to know when Learn SKN drops another video. So yes, like I was saying, we're looking at consumer protection and consumer rights today in this video. So we're looking at the Ombudsman, we're looking at the rights that consumers have, and also organizations that might assist in protecting you, the customers. Alright, so let's just jump right into it one time. So today we are looking at objective 9 and probably 10 from the syllabus. And objective 9 states, list the functions of consumer organizations. Functions of consumer organizations: the rights and protection of consumers, private organizations and government, the role of quality control organizations like the Bureau of Standards, and the role of the Ombudsman. So that's what we're going to start looking at today, 9, and probably roll over to 10, depends on the length of time. So we're going to turn to our textbooks, and we are still in Unit 6. And so we're going to look at consumer protection. So list the functions of consumer organizations. So as consumers, we all have certain rights. We all need to be protected. Businesses might go out of their way to, try to take advantage of the customers. And so there should be some level of protection afforded to consumers. And so why do you need to protect consumers? One reason you have right here outlined. The very fact that, remember, we're looking at marketing and we're looking at branding. And we said that one reason why companies might want to brand their products is because people might want to rip off the product. And so if you have a nice brand that everyone can recognize and persons can pick the fake one from the real one, then that would offer some level of protection. And so taking it a step further, we have protection afforded to consumers because, as I say here, there are many copycat products on the market. As they say, a lot of people try to imitate the best items out there. You know how many knockoff Galaxy phones they have, how many knockoff iPhones they have, how many knockoff Gucci, how many knockoff Louis Vuitton, how many knockoff, reputable brands. A lot of knockoffs exist out there. And so consumers need protection from some of these products. And so we have things in place that can help to protect the consumers, things like intellectual property, and the rights of the consumers to take back things that were sold to them under certain nefarious means and stuff like that. So because of the fact that people can imitate and fake these products, we consumers need protection. They may use false advertising. So by law, there are some laws that frown on false advertising. You cannot be trying to fool consumers about your product when it is not how it is said to be. So false advertising is a red flag. And so consumers need protection from these kind of things. And so there are regulations and rules to try and protect consumers from false advertising. Because if that wasn't the case, any company could have claimed all kind of weird things about their product. Their product is the best to do this, the best at that. All kind of outrageous claims they could have made about their products to try to fool consumers into buying them. But to limit that kind of false advertising, you have regulations and rules that prevents this. So they may use false advertising to convince the consumers to purchase the product by making exaggerated claims about the product's ability. Right? So there are regulations and laws to protect against advertising in general. Some products you cannot really target to kids as it is advertising, because we know kids are susceptible. They are young, they're impressionable, and so you cannot just up and advertise certain things to children. there are advertising laws and regulations against certain products. For example, you don't see nobody advertise cigarettes anymore, because cigarettes cause cancer. And so there are laws against advertising cigarettes and those kind of things, right? And so even when advertising certain controlled substances, you have to make sure, say, put in advertisement, drive responsibly, drink responsibly, that kind of stuff. So there are rules that protect the consumers against certain things. When you see drugs are being advertised, you see them list all of the side effects and etc. to inform the consumers. So we need protection against those kind of advertising. Why else we need protection? They can work together to control the price of the product or its supply. So we're saying that the producers, I don't know if you all did, those are the economics, we know about collusion. So a bunch of producers can come together and try to decide, collude against customers, meaning they might want to try to charge a price, to them agree, okay, we're going to charge this high price against them. You ain't saying nothing, I ain't saying nothing. They ain't got no other way to go. All of us going to benefit, right? So we're saying that there are laws and regulations against companies coming together to try to, price gouge customers, to try to artificially restrict supply of products. That's a no-no. So when companies are caught colluding, then against the customers, then their repercussions, fines and that kind of thing would be felt. All right. So one of the best examples of colluding we'll find in the oil market. The oil companies, a lot of them collude to charge a certain price for oil, to try to restrict the supply of oil and push up the price of these products. And so we don't really want that happening. So we need protection as consumers against companies coming together and trying to price us, give us some high prices for certain things. Same way even with monopolies, right? Monopolies are when there's only one company producing a good, but the government makes sure that they monitor how these monopolies operate so that they don't just charge a high price because we don't have any other options. So the government makes sure to watch this and ensure that the customers are not being taken advantage of. Customers need to be looked after, or else they're going to be taken advantage of by the companies. Companies' main aim is to make money, make profit, maximize their profit. Companies are not in the habit of charity, and so they'll take as much as they want from you, the customer, unless we have rules and laws and regulations that protect us, the consumers. So these rules to protect consumers from exploitation, many governments have introduced consumer protection laws to control marketing activities to ensure they are fair and accurate. Consumers need to be protected from such unethical practices, for example, imitation goods that are not of genuine quality, deceptive advertisement from businesses which take advantage of customers. So we need protection, and that's why we have laws, consumer laws, that are used to protect us from some of the unfair treatment that these companies might put upon us. Right? Consumers can be treated unfairly when they seek to return products which they are dissatisfied, or when they have to make a complaint about products or services. So you as a customer, if you buy something, you have every right to return it if what you got is not what you expected. You have every right to return it. But the business, of course, have the right to say, okay, no refund, or I give you store credit or whatever. But they have to listen to you. They have to compensate you, right? So it makes sense. Otherwise, if there were no rules or laws in place, then people can sell you whatever they want, broken items, spoiled items, with no remorse, no repercussions, no nothing. So good thing that we have all of these things in place. They can help us as consumers. Some consumers may be unable to read well and may not be aware of or understand laws and their own rights as consumers. This can make them susceptible to exploitation by unethical businesses and marketing activities. And so that's why laws are in place to protect our consumers. We do need protection. Like I said, the companies, some of them are unethical. They have bad intention, and as so we need to have consumer protection laws to help us out in this venture. When consumers are organized in a group, they have more power to be represented compared to manufacturers and businesses that have their own trade groups. And so we have some consumer associations, etc., that can work together to help and help protect our rally on behalf of consumers. All right, so how are consumers protected? Consumers are protected by, you have 3 things listed there. Laws and regulations, as I stated before, they are put in place by government to protect the rights of consumers. Consumer organization, as I said before, when you come together, when consumers come together in an organization, they can have a voice and they can voice their displeasure against certain practices from big companies. So consumer organizations which serve to inform consumers about their own rights and responsibilities. Then we have government agencies which are enacted by legislation to protect the rights of consumers. In the Caribbean, this generally takes the form of the Bureau of Standards and the Ombudsman. So the Office of the Ombudsman and the Bureau of Standard are government agencies that help to protect the consumers. So right there we have 3 ways that consumers are protected. All right, so 3 ways: laws and regulations, consumer organizations, and government agencies. Right, so if they ask you to list 3 ways consumers are protected, we have them right there. I mean, you could even say laws by itself, regulations by itself, consumer organizations, government agencies, right? So those are ways we can protect the consumers. Customers are always right. Customers are always right. I mean, I have some issues with that whole statement, but that's something that companies can use as a rallying cry to try to improve their customer service. But nonetheless, as a consumer, you do indeed have certain rights, right? So when you go to the shop or wherever, don't let nobody feel that they could just tell you what they want, because you have certain rights as a consumer, right? You have certain rights, and don't let no store or any producer trample on your rights. So rights, the right to consumer education, right? So as a consumer, you have the right to be educated about your own rights, right? So you have that right to go out and make sure you educate yourself about all the rights of a consumer. You have that right. So doesn't make sense to go in to a situation ignorant of the situation, ignorant of certain things, right? Sometimes you see customers in a place making a lot of noise, and sometimes they're dead wrong, right? Sometimes they're dead wrong, but they're making a lot of noise, ignorant to what rights they actually do have, right? Some people love to talk about, I pay me money, I spend my money. Spending your money doesn't give you the right to anything, right? So you have to educate yourself as to the rights that you have. It can be so irritating when you hear people talking about, I pay for this already, I pay for that, I spend my money. Like, your money is not the only money out there, right? And so some companies don't even care about the money. They prefer to have a customer that is well behaved, a returning customer, somebody can talk to, that kind of thing, right? So you have to educate yourself about the rights of a consumer instead of just going and just talking, and you're in the wrong for certain things. So you have the right to educate yourself as a consumer about what your rights are as a consumer. Then you have the right to safety. You have the right to safety. Protection against hazardous products. So you have the right to safety, meaning that as a consumer, you have the right to be protected from using hazardous things that can cause you damage, even shopping in an environment that can cause you damage. So you have that right. You walk up in a store, you have the right to be in a safe place shopping. The product you buy, you have the right to know that that product is safe. You need protection against these things. So you have the right to safety, both in the good or service. Well, even the service will be a part of the premises. So if you come into a building, you have the right to make sure that that building is safe, right? So those are some rights that you have as a consumer. The right to safety, to eat safe food, to drink safe drinks, to wear safe clothing, to use safe products. You have that right. No business out there got the right to be producing goods or services that can harm you as a consumer. That is not right, and so that's something that they can be taken to court for, and you can take legal action against them for. You have the right to safety as the consumer. Then you have the right to information. So if you roll up into a store, you roll up into a restaurant, you as a consumer have the right to the information. If I'm going to buy some food, I have the right to ask, does it contain meat? Does it contain nuts, mayonnaise, egg, whatever? You can ask these questions, and you're supposed to get the answer. You have the right to that information. So if I ask somebody, does this product have in milk or peanuts or something, knowing that I may be allergic, they have the right to tell you what you ask. Alright, and same way, if they refuse, you have the right, which is the fourth one, to choice. A lot of consumers get this thing mixed up, the right to choice. You can't go in and insist on nothing. The reality is, if you don't like it, you can go somewhere else. That's the reality. Right? If you don't like it, you can go somewhere else. If the price is too high, instead of staying there balling on the price, go somewhere else. Right? If you don't like the offerings, instead of staying there making noise, cussing, just go somewhere else. You as a consumer have the right. You can walk into a store, try on 1,000,000 shoes, and not buy none. You have the right. I mean, it's annoying to the people in the store, but you have the right. You can go in, touch everything, well, not touch, but investigate the product, look at the product, take it off the shelf, put it back up, whatever, and don't buy it. You have the right to try on 1,000,000 pants or shirts in a store and buy none. You have that right. Same way. If they have restrictions on these things, they have the right to tell you, leave my premises, because it's private property. So everybody have rights. It's not just a one-sided thing. So nobody should trample on nobody's rights. So you have rights as a consumer to choose. So you have the right to a choice and not be forced into a decision. Sometimes you go to shop in St. Kitts in some of those Indian shops, and they want to force you to buy this stuff. They're just in your skin, in your face, don't want you to leave. They're just trying to make you buy something. Right? Sometimes they have some added peer pressure right there. So you have the right to choice. You have the right to be heard. So I know people have seen this before, right? But you go into a store, something you don't like, you have every right to be heard. That's why you ask for the manager. So you have the right to go and say and file a complaint. So don't feel as though, don't be afraid, don't be shy. If there's something you don't like, you have the right to go and lodge a complaint with the person, the supervisor, the manager. You go as far as you want to. So if you ask for the supervisor, they don't give you any satisfaction, you can go to the manager and go right up to the CEO if you have to. So you have the right to be heard. A lot of people end up in trouble, companies end up in trouble when they try not to hear what the customers are trying to say. Right? Because they feel as though, you're just a bother, you're a bother to them and things like that. Right? And so, as a consumer, you do have the right to be heard. And then the last one we have here on the table, you have the right to redress. Meaning, if something doesn't go right, or something doesn't go how you see it, you have the right to be compensated. You have the right to get corrected action. You have the right. So if you go to a supermarket, a shop, you buy a pants, you reach home, your pants got in hole, you have every right to get back your money or get a new pants. So you have the right to redress. So those are some of the rights that consumers have as it relates to conducting business in the markets. So consumers do have some rights, and it's good to know what your rights are so that these companies, these businesses don't try to take you for a ride, don't try to take advantage of you as a customer. Alright, so those are the rights of the consumer. Right? The 1895 Sales of Goods Act give rights to consumers. So we have rights. Don't let nobody try to tell you you ain't got no rights. Don't let anybody try to push you around. Right? So we have rights, we have acts, we have consumer acts. They exist. They are on the books. Now, what role does the government play in consumer protection? What role does the government play? And the government plays a large enough role because some of the agencies are key entities that push consumer rights, protect consumer rights. So the rights of consumers are recognized through consumer protection agencies. Depending on the country, they fall under the arm of the Ministry of Legal Affairs or the Ministry of Consumer Affairs. These agencies are supported by various laws or acts enacted by the government to protect both consumers and businesses. So this rights thing ain't a one-way street. It's both businesses and consumers. Some of the responsibilities of consumer protection agencies include advising consumers of their rights and responsibilities. So I would dare say that we do a poor job of that in general. Right? There's a poor job of that in general because you have to dig deep and try to find the information yourself. Right? You don't really hear anybody forthcoming with this kind of information. So a lot of advertising of your rights don't go around. And that is why if you don't know your rights, you get trampled upon. So you should go and try and seek out, educate yourself as to the rights of you, the consumer. Because I bet you, the businesses know their rights. They know what they can get away with. So you need to even the playing field and go and find out what your rights are and what you can tolerate and that kind of thing. Right? Monitoring commercial activities to deter adverse and trade practices while identifying issues affecting consumers. So we're talking about looking at prices, price gouging, protecting you from businesses' unethical behavior. They monitor these things. They keep an eye on these things. Receiving through hotline and website and investigating consumer complaints. So if you have a complaint on a company, you go and lodge that complaint with the necessary agency, the Bureau of Standard, the Ombudsman, whoever, and they are the ones who would receive that complaint and try to investigate and come to a solution. That's part of their mandate, part of their job. Conducting continuous field research into consumer needs, preferences as they relate to goods and services. Now, I'm not sure about this one. That's a responsibility, yes, but much of it don't really go on, and much of it don't really happen. A lot of these consumer agencies just basically they don't really do as much as they should. Right? They don't really do as much as they should. Look into the prices of stuff, price control, because some government items are under price control, but somebody need to make sure that the price is right. But these agencies sometimes they're sleeping on the job, because sometimes you go to a supermarket and the price of certain goods way out of order, and nobody there to try to put it back how we're supposed to. We're talking about things that are essential goods. So they're supposed to conduct research and look at market assessment and things like that. And they're supposed to be advocating or rallying for consumers through attendance and partnerships at meetings of advisory bodies and by testing and rating consumer products. So that's a lot of stuff they should be doing. Some they are not. Right, so those are some of the government agencies. But I know for sure that our Bureau of Standards here in St. Kitts, they do a number of these things. Right? They do a number of these activities. They do look at items and the quality, the standard, etc. They do their part. So one of these agencies would be, as I said, the Bureau of Standards. That's one of them. Remember up here we looked at government agencies, and so we have the Bureau of Standards and the Ombudsman Office, the Office of the Ombudsman. Bureau of Standards and the Office of the Ombudsman. Those are two agencies that help with consumer rights, consumer protection, consumer affairs. That's some of their mandate, to protect us, the consumers, from businesses and their unethical practices. So, Bureau of Standards. Another government agency which serves to protect consumer and business is the Bureau of Standards. And in each country, this will be under the purview of specific government ministry and will have its own mandate. Likewise, it will be guided by laws of the particular country. Right here, our Bureau of Standards is a part of the Ministry of Trade, Industry and Trade and Commerce. Industry and Trade, the Ministry of Trade. Right? That's where Bureau of Standards falls under, especially to assist with exporting and standard of products, of items and things like that. So that's where you would lodge a complaint if something on a shelf expires, spoil, whatever. Ministry of Health handles that also in St. Kitts, because they work hand in hand with the Bureau of Standards for those kind of safety hazards and things like that. In Jamaica, the Bureau of Standards was established to promote and encourage standardization, so in relation to commodities. Right, so those are some examples across the region. But in St. Kitts, we do have a Bureau of Standards, and as the name suggests, they help to maintain standards so that consumers are not taken advantage of. So there are a number of acts that have been enacted that are there to protect the consumer, and the Bureau of Standards will be the one to help and make sure that these acts are followed. So the Bureau of Standards, that's one agency that helps protecting the consumer. And next one is the Ombudsman. The Ombudsman creates another layer of protection for consumers and businesses. The office of the Ombudsman is established to give assistance to people who believe they have suffered injustice at the hands of public officers employed by the government agencies and departments. So you hear that. So you have an issue with an employee, a public sector worker, or you go down to a public sector establishment. Remember, they operate as businesses also. So if you go down to a public sector, government-owned office, a government-owned business, and you don't like something that happened, you can take that up with the Ombudsman, the Office of the Ombudsman. So you roll along to Skelett and something ain't too good, you could take that up with that office right there. So that's what the office was established to do, to give assistance to people who believe they have been wronged by public officers employed by the government and government agencies and departments. Right? So that's what the Ombudsman is for. So if you have an issue, you know where to take it. I think ours is located, it was East Independence Square, somewhere down there. I saw the office of the Ombudsman. I don't know if it moved since then, but we do have one. And so, like I said, if you have an issue with a government official, a government business or whatever, that is where you take that issue. Their job is to respond to inquiries from the public, conduct thorough, impartial, and independent investigations of complaints, resolving complaints, consulting and making recommendations for purpose of improving policy and administration, providing counseling and referrals for matters not under the purview of the office. Right? So those are some roles that the Office of the Ombudsman carry out. Okay, so those are two of the key agencies within the government that help to protect consumers. One from a private perspective, like if you have an issue with a private sector company or individual store, you can go to the Bureau of Standards. You have an issue with a government-owned business, you can go to the Ombudsman's office. Alright, so those are the agencies that handles those consumer complaints. So we're gonna stay there for now, and of course, you know what to do. Hit the bell so you know when you drop part 2 of this video. We're gonna look at customer service and one of the other videos. So drop us a like, hit the bell, and stay tuned for more videos from Learn SKN. In the meantime, you can browse the entire lecture series we have on POB, the entire lecture series we have on economics, and some other past papers for economics, past papers for POB. So let's browse the content and subscribe to the channel. Thank you.